Okay, good. Good deal. Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, August 31st, and welcome to our final Let's Talk Tuesday. Let's Talk Tuesday has been an August webinar series that is geared towards helping you understand the changes in school nutrition programs in relation to the many active waivers that Missouri has opted into for school year 21-22. So my name is Kayla Becerra. I'm Director of School Nutrition Programs here at DESE, and I'm joined by the entire SNS team today. Barbara Shaw, Coordinator of Food and Nutrition Services, will start us off by providing an update of the Child Nutrition Program Emergency Operating Cost Reimbursement Program. And then we'll move into a town hall session to answer questions that you have for us. So first, I'd like to say that this webinar is being recorded. Double check. And it will be available on our newsletters, webinars, and workshops webpage. And unlike our event flyer says, you don't need to enter an email address to receive a training certificate. We published a blank training certificate for you to download, fill out, and file. And this can also be found on our newsletters, webinars, and workshops page. Instead, feel free to enter hellos and shout out your school district in the chat. So I want to show you, again, I did this last week, where that certificate and the resources that previous Let's Talk Tuesdays have gone over. So you'll see on the newsletters, webinars, and workshops page that it's underlined, the certificate of completion, and it's blank for you to fill out, which is easy for folks who are tuning in live or watching the recording. You will receive an hour and a half of training hours for each webinar watched. And then I also wanted to show you again where this application packet guidance is. A team of nutrition program specialists put great effort into understanding USDA guidance and to help create these resources for you. Please view the webinar and the written instruction before contacting our office for help. There are some changes to completing the application packet this year, and you will find that the team did a wonderful job communicating these changes through the guidance they created. Once again, we are asking that application packets for school year 21-22 operations are submitted by the end of the day on Friday, September 10th. We're quickly working to open the SSO building applications for school year 21-22, which contains October 21 to June 2022 operation months. The SSO applications are currently not available yet in the 21-22 application packet, but still please submit the 21-22 application by Friday, September 10th. DESE will send an email notifying you once 21-22 SSO building applications are available. I also wanted to share that this screenshot is not updated. We have our August 17th webinar and resources available. Next slide is where you can opt into or apply for waivers for school year 21-22. They're available on our disaster/COVID-19 waiver information page, and you may now apply for the waiver to allow specific meal pattern flexibility or opt into other meal service waivers, which are listed on the web page and screen. So please view handouts and webinars from August 10th, Let's Talk Tuesday, to learn more about how to complete the surveys. And another update, so today's webinar we will need to end at 2:15 because there is a department meeting at 2:30 that our team needs to go to. So we will be ending today at 2:15. So without further ado, I'll now pass it over to Barb to share some updates on emergency operating cost reimbursement.
Thank you, Kayla. Okay, I'm going to share. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
I can see it.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Kayla. So today we're going to discuss in more detail the child nutrition the emergency operational cost reimbursements that we've been talking about a little while now. Authority for this program came from USDA Memo SP 06/2021, which was released on January 26th. So what is the child nutrition emergency operation cost reimbursement payments? These are going to be additional funds provided to schools that operate the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program or the Child and Adult Care Food Program for emergency operating costs that were incurred during the beginning months of the public health emergency. So these reimbursements provide additional funding for the schools whose revenues might have declined or were temporarily interrupted during the early months of the pandemic due to any school closures or other restrictions. So this time period is going to be March, April, May, and June of 2020. During these particular months, many schools sacrificed their funding sources to continue to operate the programs or to operate in an alternative method than what you were normally used to, or you were forced to cut or suspend your operations due to COVID. So these relief funds are intended to help address these shortfalls and ensure that school nutrition program operators have the opportunity to rebuild those program resources or pay back the funds that were used to draw from other sources during that time period. So who is eligible for these funds? This is going to go to schools that filed valid claims during any of the months of March through June of 2020. However, if the program operator suspended or paused during any of these months, March through June of 2020, you may still be eligible for these payments. Program operators that did have to pause or suspend operations during the March through June of 2020 reimbursement period, you may still be eligible if you filed valid claims during the same months in the previous year of 2019, or in an alternative period, January through February, you might still be eligible for these payments. So eligibility is also based off of schools that filed valid meal claims for any of the months of September, October, November, and December of 2020, because this indicates that you have resumed meal service since that reimbursement period. The LEAs that did not file claims for the months but meet the other periods of eligibility, you must provide an assurance statement to our office that the school will begin meal service operations at least 90 days after the end of the public health emergency. So who is still talking about who is eligible? Generally speaking, a new LEA operator probably did not file claims during the March through June of 2019 reference period because you were not participating in the program. So these new LEAs, we look at months of January and February of 2020 whenever we are calculating those reimbursement amounts. So let's dive deeper into how this calculation was determined. Based on the USDA Policy Memo SP 06/2021, FNS, so our office, is directly calculating payment amounts for the schools. We are using our records that we have from your reimbursement claims submitted for National School Lunch, School Breakfast, Seamless Summer, and we also obtained records from the Department of Health and Senior Services for the schools that operated the summer food service program. So all of these payments are calculated on a per month basis, and the sum of the payments for all 4 months represents the total owed to each LEA. So there are some payment calculation definitions that we look at whenever we are calculating these payments. Whenever we're calculating the payments for new program operators and then other program operators, we are looking at a reimbursement period. So the reimbursement period is March, April, May, June of 2020. We're then comparing that to a reference period of March, April, May, and June of 2019. For new schools, we're using an alternative period of January and February of 2020 because they were not operating during the reference period of March, April, May, and June of 2019. So when we're calculating payments, we break the schools down into 2 different categories. We look at all other operators. So this is any school that was participating in the program during the reference period of March 2019, April 2019, May 2019, and June 2019. The other schools that were not participating are going to be considered a new program operator. And for those, we look at the reference periods of January and February of 2020 when calculating these payments. So looking at all program operators, so if you were operating the National School Lunch, School Breakfast, Seamless Summer option during March, April, May, and June of 2019, you were again considered an all other operator. So we look at your calculation by subtracting the total reimbursement amount received through the applicable programs during each reimbursement period month of March, April, May, and June of 2020. From the corresponding month in the same month, but the different year of 2019. And then we multiply the difference between those figures by a factor of 55%. And this results in the total payment for that month. So I'll show an example here. So this is what the payment for May of 2020 looks like. We take the corresponding month of May of 2019, and then we deduct that from the corresponding month of May of 2020, and then multiply that by a factor of 55%. So we break it down using the reimbursements. So the May of 2019 reimbursement, if we look at this data and it's $10,000, it could be NSL reimbursement, school breakfast reimbursement, and SSO reimbursement. So that's how we're getting that example for the May of 2019. And then we take the May of 2020 reimbursements. So we deduct May of 2019 from May of 2020, and we get $4,000, and then we take it by a factor of 55% to come up with a payment of $2,200 for that total May reimbursement. So when we look at new LEAs, so these schools were not operating during that reference period of March through June of 2019, their calculation is determined by taking an average total reimbursement amount received during January and February of 2020. The corresponding reimbursement amount during each month of the reimbursement period of March through June of 2020 is then subtracted from that average total reimbursement using the January and February time period. The difference is then again multiplied by the 55%. So here's an example on calculating a new LEA. So we take the May of 2020 payment would be equal to the average of January and February of 2020 reimbursement, subtracting the April 2020 reimbursement period, multiplying by a factor of 55%. So we look at an example for a new LEA. If we're looking at, say, for example, an April payment, we take the April reimbursement minus the average between the January and the February times the 55% to get to a total of $2,750. So this is a payment example for a new LEA. So then we also look at partially new program operators. And these calculated payments are for LEAs who filed claims for at least one of the months during the reference period of March through June of 2019. So if in March of 2019, the school was not operating, we calculate the potential payment using the new LEA formula. If the school was operating in one of these months, we would use the formula for the all other operators to come up with the payment for that month. So calculating the payments for the month of March, this month is a little different because they are taking the total amount and then dividing this in two. This special circumstance is because the pandemic took effect halfway through the month of March, and therefore only half of that month is being eligible for the reimbursement payments. So how will the payments be made? The LEAs do not need to apply for these payments. Our office is automatically calculating the payments. If you have questions on how your payment was calculated, you can contact our office and we will walk you through the data that we used and then compare it to any internal data that you use to then agree on a payment or to show you how we got to your payment. You can review the amount that you're eligible for. In a second, I'll show you the spreadsheet that we've created, and we just got that posted on the website yesterday. So you are able to go in, type in your agreement number, and see how much of the payment you are eligible for. Payment of funds will be made the same way your monthly claim is processed. Payments will be made through an electronic transfer to your local education agency, general fund, or a nonprofit food service account. At this time, we're thinking that payments will probably be made towards the end of October. And then you should receive a letter or notification or an email at least 1 week prior to the disbursement of those payments. So how can these funds be used? They can be used the same as any allowable food service expense. But for these particular funds, the purpose of these funds were to help the food service account rebuild. But also, if you did borrow any sources, or if you had to supplement any sources, these funds can be used to pay back those sources. So if you borrowed any funds from a general account to help cover any cost because you had wiped out the food service account during the operating periods of March through June of 2020, these funds can be used to offset the impact of the pandemic operations. Any remaining funds need to stay in the nonprofit food service account and be used in accordance with your normal allowable program reimbursements. So the allowable use of funds, you can use these for equipment. You can use them for food supplies. You can use these funds to, again, transfer out to another fund if that fund was used to borrow money. You can use these for food, for program meals, for reimbursement meals only, and then any other allowable food service expenses. However, you must maintain documentation to support how these funds were spent. So you need to track any invoices that the funds were spent on, receipts, and any other supporting purchasing documentations as you normally would do during the procurements or during the record tracking for any of your food service expenses. The invoices that, if you're using them to specifically show that you are paying back a fund, you need to keep invoices that show the March through June timeframe if these funds are being used to pay back other sources. Okay, so this slide is the LEA lookup tool. And this is found under the DESE Food and Nutrition Services website under the news and updates section of the website. You can go in, enter in the agreement number, and then it will pop up the total amount of reimbursement that you're eligible for. If you want to know the monthly total, you can contact our office and I can give you the monthly totals for March, April, May, and June. But this will populate the total amount. If you do get a notice that in order to qualify for these funds, if you get a red notice at the bottom of your spreadsheet, you need to submit an assurance statement. So this is a notice saying that you are eligible for funds. However, because you have not come back into the program yet, you need to send us an assurance statement saying that you do plan to come back into the program and operate meals, if not this year, but by 90 days after the end of the public emergency. We did work with DESE Accounting to set up a code, a revenue code for these emergency operating cost reimbursements. So the code was set up as 5471. So you will code these funds under 5471. Okay, that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, we'll open it up for questions, or we'll take questions through the chat for, I guess, do we want to do questions for the emergency operating costs first?
Yeah, but if you want to start with those.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I don't see any. Do you see? Can you let people in? I don't see any. I can't see hands raised.
Let me change this. Okay, so I see Grennan has a question. She raised her hand. So go ahead, Grennan, you should be able to unmute yourself now and ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me, Barbara? So I have two questions. Well, actually, first of all, thank you for sharing this information with us today. But the first question is, DESE in any way notifying our financial officers that this money is coming, what that code is, and that these funds must stay in our nonprofit food service account? Are they getting notification, or is that up to us to let them know? I think you're on mute, Barb.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, yeah. DESE did send out the accounting manual that the new fund was published in, this year's accounting manual. There has not been any other correspondence. I know there was a MOASBO conference that we did discuss these funds. So I'm not sure if anybody from your district attended that, but I don't think anything has went out to that district level for communication on this. So it's going to be up to you. If you need us to send something out to, or send something to you so that you can provide to them, we can.
Well, this kind of goes to the next question. You said that we need to keep documentation to show how these specific funds are for. We didn't need to repay anything back to the district, so really it's just our operational funds moving forward. And so my concern is that these were for last year's operating funds, but last year's come and gone. So we really need to be using them for this year to operate. And so I'm just I just want to make sure that we're communicating things well to our business people, that these funds need to be used for us to be able to continue operating and not just added to last year's budget and we don't have access to it. Is that kind of making sense?
Yeah, so, when we're thinking about last year's program operating expenses, we're really just using last year's reimbursement period to determine the calculation for those payments. So if you did not incur any additional costs that you needed to borrow money from, I would say it's safe to say that you can apply these to this year's and not look at last year's expenses.
Okay. Well, I won't take up any more time, but just in case it's not clear to our business office, we may be reaching out to you because I just want to make sure that we can access those funds this year. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And we can put something in the Q&A that makes it, our office is working on putting together a Q&A from all the Let's Talk Tuesday. So we can definitely be specific on a question in there to keep the funds in the program. Definitely, they're not meant to supplement if you did not borrow those funds.
Cool, thanks, Brennan. I think
Thank you.
Scott Blake has a hand raised. Would you like to unmute yourself, Scott, and ask your question?
Yes, my question is, I don't know if you'd call it paused or stopped service during that time, but we continue to pay our food service workers their full salary and all. Would something you're talking about as far as replacing those funds that we weren't having any revenue in?
So did you borrow money to pay salaries?
Yes, we barely break even any month.
Okay. If you borrowed money to pay salaries, then these funds can be used to pay back that source of fund that was borrowed to pay food service salaries.
Okay.
If they want to accept, you don't have to pay this back for that purpose, but you can.
Okay.
So if you're just giving it back, it would be like a general funds transfer.
Okay. I was going to ask you about the transfer then too. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you can show, if these funds do come into your food service account, you can show a transfer out to the general fund in this amount, and then just keep internal documentation that was to pay back a source for borrowed funds during the pandemic. Okay, thank you. Was there any other questions, Kayla?
Yeah, I have some in the chat. I'll read them to you. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So from Shirley Derby, since labor cost is an allowable cost in the program, would it be allowable to give each associate a frontline worker thank you incentive?
That probably is going to be a question for at the local level. I'm not sure if we can say that you can just give your workers a lump sum bonus, but that would probably be a question at the local level that you could ask for. It can be used for salaries. So if it's coded as a salary, but I think we would go to say that you need to put it back into the program to, benefit the program, and instead of towards a bonus, unless it's truly to go to pay salaries, then it can definitely go to pay salaries, but if it's just a bonus, we'd probably highly suggest you to go to your district business professionals about that, but also to say that you would really want to keep it in your food service account to benefit the food service account.
Cool, thanks, Barb. So we're getting a question if the slide decks will be available to share this with others. Yes, these will be available on our newsletters, webinars, and workshops page. You can access that there, along with this recording. Okay, so we have another question from M Tool. Is there a project number that will need to be associated with the expenditures that will be paid with this revenue?
Well, we have published the object code and then the project number. You just keep it under, I mean, you could probably just keep it under lunch. But the accounting manual, just follow your project codes in the accounting manual is what I would say to that one. There's not a specific project code for this, but you know, if you're using it on a lunch expense or a breakfast expense, you would use that project code. But I just follow the accounting manual. There shouldn't be any changes from what you normally do in the accounting manual. Hopefully that helps, but thank you.
Okay. Let's see, the next question. Right, we have people having trouble hearing. Is there a place to find the waiver for area of eligibility?
Are we going
I
into
can take that,
general
Barb.
questions now?
It seems like,
Is there any more? Did we get any through the email box with the child nutrition?
wait, I see
operating
one more.
cost? Okay.
There's one that came through to me directly, so you won't be able to see this. So let me read that one first, then we'll get back to the other one. So can we use the money to purchase new equipment that kitchens are in need of?
Absolutely. Yep, this can be used for equipment purchases. Yes. There was one that came in through the email. It said, how do we get the CNEOC? And we did discuss this, so hopefully that helps, but I'll just answer it again. You don't need to apply for it. Payments will come automatically. We will notify you. At this point in time, it's looking like the end of October that we'll be able to pay out the payments. So we're working on with our accounting and our overall system to be able to successfully pay out these payments. We'll keep you updated. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions tied to these payments, I guess we can go into general questions if that's good with you, Kayla.
Yeah, that works for me. So we'll open it up to all questions, not just EOC questions. So I'm going to go back to that one about waiver for area eligibility and address that. We don't have a waiver for area eligibility this year like last year for SSO. All schools are able to operate SSO this year without that waiver.
So the waiver, I'll kind of add to that because it is confusing. So the difference is this year, the area eligibility waiver was included. It was like an all-in-one package. So we had any school, it didn't matter. They kind of just basically threw out area eligibility. So we're not even looking at area eligibility this year. Any school, no matter what location you're in, can operate Seamless Summer. So it was like an all-inclusive package this year. So there is an area eligibility waiver for after-school snack. However, So if you want to do after school snack, and serve all snacks for free, we still do have the area eligibility waiver for after school snack. But SSO, any school, no matter your location, can operate SSO.
And we don't have, to go off of you, Barb, we don't have a Survey Monkey like we traditionally do for waivers for the area eligibility for after school snack. You'll just enroll in that through your application packet, and then we have internal procedures to enroll you in after school snack and claim everyone at the free snack rate. Okay, so I'm not seeing other ones come through the chat, so I'll move to other ones that were submitted through the email yesterday. And this will become open to our entire team, so I might throw it onto our team to answer one of these questions. And you all saw these come through. So let's see. First question is, our school started on August 16th. Since we didn't get any direction prior to that in regards to adult meals, we have decided not to serve them this year. Is that okay? And I think I'll ask Ellen to answer that one.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I got that right, that they decided not to serve adult meals. Is that
That's
the
correct.
question? Okay. Yeah, so that is fine. There's no requirement with national school lunch programs that you feed adults. So if you choose to not feed any adults, there is no problem with that. So yep, that is fine.
Cool. Thanks, Ellen. Another question is, when accounting for school snacks, do you want us to use a tally sheet or roster with names? So anyone from the team would like to answer that question?
I can go ahead, Kayla, if you want.
Thanks, Ellen. Yeah.
Okay. So for snacks, since they're all free this year, that you can claim them all at the free rate, provide them for free, we don't need to know the names of the students. So we just need a total of the kids who took a snack. So a tally sheet would be fine. A roster with the names, you can still do it that way, do it through your computer system. So either one of those is fine. We just need a total. So if it's easier for you to do the tally, that works. If you want to keep track for your own purposes to have names, that's fine too.
Cool. Kind of sticking with after school snacks, we have few more questions about that. With the snack program, do you need to keep the snack invoices separate from the SSO? They say with SSO and CACFP after school snack program, the invoices must remain separate. So is that the same case if a school is operating SSO? Ellen, would you mind addressing that as well?
I'm not sure on that invoices. Barb, do you know? This seems more like a finance coding thing, and I'm not very familiar with that.
Okay. So as far as invoices go, all program food expenses and all program food revenue can be kept in a federal food service account, or you can break those out. We do ask you to have a method available to break those out, but you don't necessarily have to keep invoices separate. We realize that some of your invoices might have all sorts of program food on there, so we don't necessarily ask you to keep invoices separate, but we do ask that you have a method to track any food expenses or food revenue separate. Does that answer that question?
That sounds clear to me.
Okay.
I have another question about after-school snack, more meal pattern questions. So with after-school snack, can you offer 3 components and allow the students to pick 2 for a reimbursable snack?
I can go ahead and take that one. So that is fine as long as every student does take 2 components. So if you want to give them some options, there's not really anything with offer versus serve for the snack. So they have to have 2 different components. So as long as you're doing that, that's fine. Now they can't take like 2 fruits and it counts. They have to have 2 components. But if you do want to have some options, as long as you're making sure that each snack has 2 components in it, that's fine.
Thanks, Ellen. All right, so I have a question about fresh fruit and vegetable program. So the question is, if we submitted our FSVP applications before May 2021 deadline, do we need to resubmit? The email last week says to apply, but I had been expecting an approval. Just want to confirm we don't need to complete again.
If you go into the system and you still see your application in there, it's fine. We will still see it on our end also. So we are waiting on one more script to pick up schools that have never operated FFVP but are eligible based on 2019 data. So any application that was submitted should still be in there. If you can go into Collier or into your web applications and you see the application in there, then we will see it on our end too. If you have a question or if you're questioning, please call and ask and we'll go in and look at it for you while we're on the phone with you, but we're getting closer.
Okay. This is asking for a reminder of where to apply for the meal pattern waiver. Now that's located on our COVID-19 waiver information page. I could share my screen real quick to show you guys where that's located. Okay. So this is where you'll access opting into or applying for waivers, disaster COVID-19 waiver information. This is running a little bit slow. So on this webpage, you'll see all the active waivers that we've opted into, and then the waiver surveys that we've created that you'll either apply for or opt into. That's the webpage. And then also, just while I have this open, on newsletters, webinars, and workshops, that page is where you'll find all of our Let's Talk Tuesday recordings and handouts, guidance packets, certificate of completion. This is where you'll go to for that information. So we've covered all the questions that were submitted to us yesterday, but I've seen more come in the chat. So we'll go through those. I see 2 more. So a question from Kay Snyder is, we are using our software program for lunch meal accounts. We do lose internet. Is it acceptable to use the tally sheet for that day?
I've unmuted
Anyone-
myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
This
Go
is
ahead
Kathy
and talk.
Snyder. We were in the middle of lunch service and we are using our software program. So the girls started taking, but that's very inefficient. So if we do lose internet during our meal service, is it acceptable for them to use tally sheets for that day?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a tally sheet available on our website that you can use. You can have as a backup right by
Okay.
your POS.
Do you have a preference? Would you rather we only use a tally sheet? I was wanting it for information to see the demographics of the amount of free qualified, reduced qualified, and full paid qualified. That was the reason. And I feel like it's a little bit better accounting system. It was the reason that we were using our software program, but I can totally use the tally sheets and nothing else if that's what you prefer.
Yeah, you don't
You're
have
allowed
to.
Yeah, go ahead, Barb.
Sorry, you don't have to. If you're running SSO,
We are.
you don't, okay, yeah, you don't have to use electronic, but I agree with you. I think if you have it available and you've purchased it and you're using it to keep data sources, that's a great justification for going ahead and taking counts at a point of service by student. But other than that, you can use any meal counting sheet. We do have an example on our website that you can use a meal counting sheet if you don't have a good tally sheet. But it's up to you. If you're operating SSO and you're serving all meals free, you can do the tally sheets.
Okay, that answers my question. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
And I can share my screen real quick to show you where the tally sheet's located. Let me go ahead and do that. So on our page, you'll go to school year 21-22 resources. And then there's a bunch of resources here. And then under this drop down, Feeding Through Seamless Summer option resources, we have a meal count sheet that was developed.
I wish we could do a poll on here, Kayla. I'd like to see if everybody's doing SSO on here. Do you know how to do a
I think I
poll?
could put one, yeah, I could put one together real quick if you want to go through the questions.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Be interactive.
Okay.
Or we could just have
Um,
everybody send a happy
We can do a
emoji.
raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're doing SSO. I'll throw together a poll. I'll do that.
Let's do a
If you
poll.
want to take over, you take over.
Okay, I'll do
screen share questions.
questions. So let's see, there's one from Sydney. Should we fill out the meal pattern waiver if we aren't using it just yet? Yes, if you anticipate ever needing to use the waiver for industry problems to COVID, go ahead and fill it out. We're not going to penalize you if you don't use it. It's just there to blanket you in case anything does happen this year, in case you need to close down, in case there's kids that need to quarantine, that need to come pick up a meal that doesn't necessarily meet meal pattern components. If your vendor calls and says they're not, bringing your whole grain noodles this week, I don't know, anything, just go ahead and fill it out so that's on file. And also, if we have filled out the waivers but have not received an email with approval of the waiver, should we be able to receive claim reimbursement under SSO for August? Yes, go ahead and operate SSO and put in your claim. Ellen, can you talk about the approval process and notifying schools approval of a waiver? We don't want you to hold up claiming or operations based on these waivers.
And we could have Abby. I know Abby's on here.
Abby.
We could talk about that too. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you filled out the meal pattern waiver, I get them and then I organize them and I send them out to all the nutrition program specialists. And then what they do is they go through it and they will write you, they'll either approve it or deny it. And then they will send you an email letting you know it's been approved or denied. So it just depends when your nutrition program specialist gets to it.
Thank you, Abby. Is there a waiver to use white bread instead of wheat because of the shortage of food? So the meal pattern waiver is being used due to the rescission that the USDA had to rescind the flexibilities that we previously saw in 2019-20 school year. This current meal pattern waiver is being used for you to apply for if you are not able to meet the whole grain rich requirements due to the vector. And then also you could probably tie those to COVID because of industry shortages or, anything in the grab and go meals at the, you can't get enough bread or, but yes, use the meal pattern waiver for your bread, any of your bread issues. I feel like I applied for all the waivers. Is there a way I can check to see if I had filled them all out? Contact your nutrition program specialist to see if you're missing anything on the waivers.
So Barb, I'm unable to make a poll.
Okay.
I can't find where that function is on Zoom. So we could do the hand raising thing idea after.
I see lots of hands already, so unless those are all questions. now I'm confused. You've got a lot of
I'm
questions.
thinking it's participating in SSO.
It's participating. Yeah.
Exciting. Yes, I get a clap. Yep, everyone. That one.
Okay.
That one agrees. Oh, there's two new messages. Okay, one question, how are we looking on time? The adult meal pricing formula recently changed due to increased expenses, but I was not aware of this when I set the adult meal price at $3 for lunch in July. Will the district be penalized because we are not charging enough for lunch? So the adult meal pricing guidance gives you options for how to set your adult meal prices. One of the options in the non-pricing
is to use the higher reimbursement rate. However, we do have the other option that looks at what is the cost of that adult meal, and to ensure that you are covering the cost of that adult meal based on the price that you set for your adult meal price. So if you've set the price of $3, you should probably go back and look at what is the price of that meal. How much is it costing you to prepare that meal? And if $3 is not covering that, yes, you will be penalized to increase that to cover the cost of that meal. Any program reimbursement, any donated food value that you get goes into preparing meals for children, for reimbursable meals. So that's why we have to be sure that we cover the cost of any adult meal. You cannot use any program revenues or resources to cover adult meals. Those have to be priced sufficiently. So if you're not using the formula that we put out last week, that's okay, but you need to be looking at the cost of your adult meal. Since the
I have a
SSO
question about-
application for, I'm sorry, Kayla, do you want to continue reading, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can
This
take
was
over to
from-
read.
Okay, there was one from Patty, if you want to take that over.
Yeah, Patty's asking, since the SSO application for August and September was filled out in the 1920 school year, will I fill out the claim in the 2021 school year? Yeah.
So that
Who would like to
claim
take
for
that one?
August and September will be found in the 1920 school year.
I think we're behind years because wouldn't it be 2021? August and September is in 2021. Right?
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, not in the 1920 school year. So
Yeah.
yeah, you'll go to the 2021 school year.
But your application should have also been in 2021. So your application and your claim are going to be in the same year. August and September should have been 2021.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting some like appreciation for these Tuesday talks, and questions if we are going to do these Tuesday talks in the future.
Okay.
I think we're thinking about it. I think these went really well. I think a quarterly meeting would be really cool, to update you all and hear what you need. Stay tuned. Okay, so we have Steve Wright is back and can hear. She says, where can we find the waivers for the area eligibility and the waiver for milk and bread? So Barb, would you want to reiterate that? I know we touched on it, but this person couldn't hear before.
Okay. So the one of the questions earlier was, where was the waiver for area eligibility? And so the answer to that question was, last year in the 2021 school year, we did have a waiver for area eligibility. This school year, we do not have a waiver. It was like an all-in-one package, so it did not matter where the school was located. You could operate SSO. We're not even looking at area eligibility. So there is no waiver this year for area eligibility to operate SSO. You can operate SSO open or you can operate SSO closed. It does not matter where you are located. We do have a waiver for after school snack area eligibility. However, you don't need to apply for this. If you've operated after school snack on your application packet, you just need to indicate that you were operating area eligible after school snacks, and we will internally reimburse you for all the snacks for free that you put into your claim.
Cool. And someone is late to arriving and asking if we've completed any training on submitting claims. We didn't include that in our Let's Talk Tuesday series, but we can certainly follow up. We plan to do a newsletter summarizing what we've talked about in Let's Talk. And we can add additional information about claims to that newsletter.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that, Barb?
Well, the claims haven't changed, so if you've never entered in an SSO claim before, you're gonna click on claims, but then you're gonna see a seamless summer option claim. So you would just go into the seamless summer option claim instead of the regular claim. So call us if you have questions. I think we did do some screenshots during the summer workshop. And that should be on the website, right?
Yeah, our summer workshops are on the website. Mhm.
There was an SSO summer workshop training that was done. So that might be a good one for anybody that has not operated seamless summer option before. Like if you had been operating SFSP, Summer Food Service Program, and now you're coming over to operate SSO, that webinar would probably be really good for you to watch.
Okay.
Kind
We
of
have
goes into
another
that next
question.
question.
Yeah, about where do I find the waivers?
Oh, no, I'm seeing SSO ? Seamless summer operation. We don't have summer school.
Oh, okay, I see that.
So maybe they're operating national school lunch program instead of seamless summer. See, right, are you operating national school lunch and breakfast program instead of seamless summer? That's probably what they're doing.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, seamless summer option isn't tied to summer school. It's just another program that you can operate during the summer to provide meals. But due to the pandemic, schools have been able to operate seamless summer option last school year and this school year to operate, to offer free meals to all kids.
Yep, and that's available through a waiver. And I'll show you all again where the waivers are located. Let me go back to sharing screen. So this is our homepage. To see what waivers Missouri has opted into, you'll click on disaster/COVID-19 waiver information under a quick link. So this is the waiver that allows schools to operate SSO this year. And these are all waivers that we've said to national office, we're using these. And if you want to apply for the specific meal pattern waiver, this is where you'll click. And if you want to opt into this list of waivers, this is where you'll click. One-stop shop for waivers right here. I'm going to lower all hands, and if you indeed have a question, go ahead and raise your hand again. And if you have a question and want to chat, go ahead and write that. Sheldon B has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. If you're having trouble unmuting yourself, go ahead and chat in the box to everyone so everyone can see it. And we'll give a few more minutes, just a couple more minutes if any come in, but thank you all for joining us today.
See if we do an October webinar, if you have any suggestions on topics, put those in the comments.
Commodity update. Okay, Sheldon B., if you contact your regional nutrition program specialist, which is Kyle Stadler, call him and he'll be able to help you with any question you have.
Do you think the free breakfast and lunch will continue past 21-22 school year, as in possibly forever? This person asked if they think the free meals will continue, and I'm not real sure. It would be nice, but there are lots of other areas of the program, such as eligibility documents, like the free and reduced eligibility documents that are used to calculate other funding formulas like fresh fruit and vegetable and Title I and equipment grants and severe need and CEP. So we need to have guidance on how to go forward determining funding and eligibility. But free meals would still be nice. I know it's reduced a lot of burdens, administrative burdens. But we do need schools to definitely continue collecting eligibility documents this year. I would say to make that a priority to continue this year more than ever to collect those eligibility documents. Even though you might be operating seamless summer, still go ahead and collect those eligibility documents. One thing I can think of is moving forward with the PEBT for 21-22 school year. We'll need eligibility information. So any advice on how to convince parents to return their free and reduced application? Maybe just educating them, letting them know like that information is used to help the school to get funding for other programs, whether it's like reading programs or any teacher incentives, any additional funding that the school would be receiving that in return benefits the student. It's not just a free meal, but it could in return impact state funding and other federal funding that the school receives. So maybe just giving them some education would help out. But I know there's some schools in the past couple of years that have done like little incentives or drawings too, and that's okay as long as you're not releasing any student information. We contract food service, so the LEA representative, I'm going to say I'm very lacking on knowledge of what all needs to be done throughout the year. It would be nice to have a document that lets me know what needs to be done. So we do have a calendar on the website under guidance and resources and then forms. Maybe there is a calendar that every month breaks down like due dates, things that are due.
I think that's too on our homepage. I think it's right on our homepage as well.
The calendar, okay, yeah. In October, suggestion, verification process review, yeah, we can do verification.
So this idea from T. McAdams, we have that same idea to like take some training and isolate it for new food service directors. We have a lot of recorded trainings online that we've done over the past few years, and to kind of to make a track for new food service directors. That's something we have an idea to make happen. Okay. So we have just a few minutes left, so why don't you keep putting your suggestions for an October update, October Let's Talk Tuesday in the chat. And I'd like to ask, oh wait, real quick. I saw Grennan raised your hand. Let's let Grennan ask her question before I close out.
Barb, you said something about PBT, and that prompted me to ask a question. We are getting inundated with calls from parents who either they've been denied or maybe they only got one card. And when they call the state, they're being directed to call the school district. And I really feel like there's nothing we can do because we've provided those lists to you, who provided it to the Department of Health and Human Services. And I don't know how to help our parents because they're the keepers of the information. Is there anything that you can help us with on that?
So I guess you need to ask them if they actually got denied or if they just haven't received the benefit yet. Because if they haven't received the benefit yet, it's coming. DSS is.
It's actually denied. I've talked to them really very closely. I've talked to Kathy Smith. I'm talking to her almost every day.
Okay.
And I've told her that the staff that's answering the phone is telling folks to call us when they get denied or they haven't got a card or something like that. And so I've been asking for them to send me letters of denial, but I really feel like that's their role because I can't do anything about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're talking to the expert, Kathy, if you're talking to her. She has become an expert by now. But we've told her the same thing, that we should not be getting calls and schools should not be getting calls, but we've got to figure out why then the student was denied. So either the student was denied because the school that they were attending was not virtual or hybrid, and so that's why that student was not eligible, or the student was not free and reduced. And so at that point, you might go and talk to the family about their free and reduced eligibility and say, well, the school overall is eligible, but the student might not have been eligible. And if you find that the student is eligible, we did send out a list that you need to send us the list of kids that are really eligible, and then we'll send those back. But it sounds like if you're talking to Kathy, you might just give her those students that are eligible and let her work with those directly instead of flowing those back through us, because that's who we're sending those to. So.
And that's fine. I don't want to take up any more time. It's just that we're CEP. We were virtual almost the entire year last year. So all of our kids qualify. And so I don't know how to make this process go any better for our families. So, okay, I appreciate it.
I don't know either. I think just because we've never dealt with PEBT before, so there's no system even that was even built to handle PEBT. So we've been handling it by scratch, just by spreadsheets and but we are talking with DSS early on now to say, you really need to think about building a system to handle this if this is going to continue. So, but I'm I know, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
did not,
There was
I
someone,
did not anticipate still being where we're at, so.
yeah, he just stopped telling him to call us because we can't really help him. So anyway,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, Kayla, do you want to wrap
Okay.
us up and we can go?
Let's wrap it up. So
Okay.
this concludes our Let's Talk Tuesday webinar series. Thank you all for joining us the entire month of August, and thank you to the entire Food and Nutrition Services team for the work you all put in this month to create so many resources for Missouri schools and answer so many questions. Visit our newsletters, webinars, and workshops page for recordings and resources, and stay tuned for more to come. Thank you again, and have a good Tuesday.
Bye.